The changes in geometry are significant, and just as with all other courses, the underlying theme is cultivating our students' ability to apply the mathematics to real-world contexts using algebra, logic, and the coordinate plane, not to merely regurgitate facts. Logic. While the logic standard, G1, did not change too much, the supporting bullets in the state's curriculum framework are much more explicit. One significant addition is the inclusion of biconditionals when both a statement and its converse are true. Parallel lines. The old G3 and G4 that together combined to make up parallel lines have now been condensed into one standard, G2. Naming the specific relationships of the angles formed has been removed and is now a grade 8 skill. Now, your geometry students this year were not in grade 8 math last year, so there is still the need to teach those specific name relationships to them. Just remember that items on the SOL test will no longer ask students to name those angle relationships, rather to use algebra, deductive proofs, and coordinate methods to solve real-world problems when two lines are parallel, including proving the existence of parallel lines. Using slope to prove lines parallel and perpendicular is new and is written into standard G3. Speaking of G3, this standard has become a bit of a catch-all. It includes finding and using distance, midpoint, and slope, including the product of the slopes of perpendicular lines. And it includes a figure's respective symmetry to a line or a point, and all transformations. Constructions. There are several additional constructions this year in the new G4 in addition to the 6 constructions we traditionally have done. The first is constructing a line parallel to a given line through a point not on the given line. Also important are constructing an equilateral triangle, a square, and a regular hexagon inscribed in a circle, constructing the inscribed and circumscribed circles of a triangle, and constructing a tangent line from a point outside a given circle to a circle. These are all present because of Virginia's recent alignment to the Common Core state standards, and are best taught by applying these constructions to real-world situations. Triangle congruence and similarity are now 2 separate standards, G6 and G7 respectively. Quadrilaterals. The old G8 is now G9. Changes include the specific inclusion of solving practical problems involving isosceles trapezoids, and requiring students to prove the properties of angles for a quadrilateral inscribed in a circle. Right triangles. The old G7 is now the new G8, and one significant addition is that students will be expected to solve real-world problems using Pythagorean theorem and its converse. Other significant additions include an alternate formula for the area of a triangle, as area equals 1/2 AB times the sine of C, and the requirement for students to explain the relationship between the sine and cosine of complementary angles. Circles. While the circle standard itself remains largely the same, one new standard, G12, will require students to write the equation of a circle using its center and radius. Modeling 2D and 3D figures is now removed entirely from this course. However, surface area and volume are still included. Also now added to this standard is the requirement to determine how changes in area and/or volume of an object affect one or more dimensions of the object. Also noteworthy in geometry this year is the new Honors Geometry Curriculum Framework, which was developed by a team of teachers and central office math staff last spring. Honors Geometry teachers are encouraged to utilize the instructional recommendations in that document. As mentioned a few moments ago, this portion of the video has highlighted the most essential information for geometry. But as with all other courses, please take the time to read our Chesterfield curriculum frameworks regularly as you plan your instruction. We have embedded all of the information you need into these resourceful planning documents.
I am sure you noticed you had to hit the ground running with different content in the first 9 weeks. Permutations, combinations, sequences and series, and even finding the sum of an infinite geometric series are all in the first 9 weeks of Algebra 2. So as you are aware, the sequencing of the Algebra 2 content has changed. A committee of teachers met to implement a framework in which the flow of the content should easily transition from one unit to the next, with the exception of a few standalone topics. There are a few things you should be aware of. Matrices, conics, systems of linear equations, and inequalities have all been removed from the state standards for Algebra 2, meaning they are now in other courses and will not be tested by the state. There is no more old and new standards. We are fully governed by the 2009 standards for Algebra 2. If it is in the framework, we are expected to teach it. Prerequisite content should be embedded in your instruction as warm-ups, leading questions, etc., not as standalone units or entire lessons. Graphing functions, standards A2, 6, and 7, require a student to be knowledgeable about all aspects of all functions. Just to name a few of those aspects, limited and discontinuous domain and ranges, asymptotes, converting between exponential and logarithmic forms, students need to be familiar with taking any function and identifying pertinent information regarding that function. Fourth 9 weeks contains content that will be tested for the first time. The Technical Assistance document that has been released by the Virginia Department of Education will be a valuable resource for you. Please take time to review this document. In closing, just as with all other courses, the curriculum framework should guide your teaching. Use the standard and the bulleted items under Essential Understandings and Essential Knowledge and Skills to inform you of the particulars of any standard and the expectations of the state. The emphasis in Algebra 2 is on increased rigor and multi-step problem solving. With a larger number of questions on the end of course test being technology enhanced, this means our students need to be well versed in problem solving as they will be required to solve open-ended questions. We want to get real and be rational. As always, if throughout the year you have any questions or need clarification, please feel free to contact any of us in the math department.